Imagine this. You've lived next door to someone for over 20 years. You've shared quiet mornings, kids growing up, holidays passing by, and yet one day you find yourself in front of a courtroom over a fence. Yes, a fence. Mr. Jackson and the Kaufmans had a common yard line, separated by an aging wooden fence. Jackson claimed the Kaufmans piled junk, old barrels, tires, wood, against it, weakening it over time. When the fence finally collapsed, he hoped his neighbors would do the neighborly thing, split the cost of a new one. But the Kaufmans refused. "It's your fence. You want a fence? Build it yourself," they said. No compromise, no discussion. Judge Judy, razor sharp as ever, immediately cut to the heart of the matter. Whose fence is it? Who is responsible? And was anyone actually doing the right thing, or just pointing fingers?
Jackson also trimmed a tree from the Kaufman's property, a tree encroaching on his side. He had the legal right, but the fence remained the central battle. In court, Judge Judy explained plainly, if the fence is on Jackson's property and it collapses, the cost to rebuild falls squarely on him. Even if the Kaufman's junk contributed to the damage, it was still Jackson's fence. Photos were brought in. Tires, barrels, and wood scattered around, some leaning against the fence, some stacked nearby. Judge Judy asked Jackson to circle what actually belonged to the Kaufmans and cause damage. The courtroom tension rose as both sides struggled to explain exactly what had happened and where. Jackson pointed to wine barrels and old boards, explaining that he'd tried to prop up the failing fence himself. But Judge Judy's voice cut through. You cannot lean anything against someone else's fence. The Kaufmans argued about which section collapsed and whose items caused the damage, each voice overlapping, some talking over each other. The courtroom felt like a war zone over a fence. Judge Judy drilled down, asking about how long Jackson had lived there, how old the fence was, and how it had deteriorated over decades. By now, it was clear the fence wasn't just leaning, it was ancient, 25 years old, and ready to fall regardless of any backyard junk. Judge Judy paused, reflecting on the bigger picture. You've been neighbors for over 20 years. Why, over something relatively inexpensive, would you not want to be good neighbors? Jackson admitted he had tried. Letters, attorney notices, even repeated reminders, but the Kaufmans never budged. Judge Judy emphasized the problem wasn't just wood and nails, it was pride, stubbornness, and a refusal to act neighborly. The emotional weight was palpable. 2 decades of life side by side, suddenly reduced to a legal spat over barrels and boards. The courtroom wasn't just about law, it was about humanity, responsibility, and accountability. Judge Judy's words struck home. You have to put a period to history. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself and for your neighbor is to accept responsibility and move on. She reminded the Kaufmans that their home should be a safe haven, not a battlefield. And she reminded Jackson that while he had rights, he couldn't force neighborly cooperation. The tension in the room was thick, but clarity emerged. Accountability matters. Blaming others doesn't replace taking responsibility for your property or your life. The verdict was simple. The fence was Jackson's responsibility. If he wanted a new fence, he would have to pay for it himself. The Kaufmans had no obligation to contribute. Judge Judy added a broader lesson. Justice isn't always about punishing others. Sometimes it's about understanding where responsibility truly lies. Sometimes peace requires letting go of minor grievances and focusing on what you can control. Jackson faced reality. Rebuild the fence himself and accept that some neighbors will never meet you halfway. The courtroom could have been about the wood and barrels, but it wasn't. It was about human behavior, ego, and the traps of letting small disputes fester. Judge Judy's message, Long-term peace requires compromise, patience, and accountability. She encouraged neighbors to let go of trivial disputes and focus on the things that matter: mutual respect, safety, and personal responsibility.
So, what happened after the gavel fell? Jackson rebuilt the fence at his own expense. The Kaufmans didn't pay a cent. The boundary was secured, the property protected, and life went on. But the lesson remains. Justice is about responsibility, not revenge. Accountability matters. Don't let pride or anger cloud common sense. And above all, sometimes the smallest disputes, like a fence, teach the biggest lessons. Because a fence is just wood, but respect, responsibility, and neighborly grace, those are the real foundations that hold up a community. And sometimes learning to put a period at the end of petty disputes is the strongest boundary you can ever build.